This week I am dual purposing my weekly podcast and adding as a video, and I'm going to be using it on two of my channels, on the Pacentric weekly newsletter and the andonley.com health and fitness, because I feel that this is a topic that can help people that are looking to achieve their goals in any part of their life, professionally or personally. I was inspired by a very insightful episode of the Ed Mylett Show on a 4-hour drive from my daughter's college a few weeks ago. I couldn't wait to get home, listen again, take notes, and share it with the world, because I just felt that the guest, who is Leila Hormozi, just hit on so many great points. Now, there's one that I don't quite agree with her on, and I did actually message her to ask a little bit more about that. Now, whether she'll actually respond to any message, probably not, but I thought I'd give it a shot anyway, and then I can clarify that down the line, because I had just written a post kind of opposite to that whole thinking. But mostly it's about entrepreneurs. So Leila and her husband Alex are very successful entrepreneurs, investors, and philanthropists. Leila only fairly recently started getting into going on social media and offering content. But Ed, Leila, and Alex were having dinner, I guess a few weeks before that podcast was recorded. And Ed was just so blown away by Leila's self-awareness, and thought she'd be a good guest for the show. Now, most of her work involves helping entrepreneurs, like with their investments in companies, and building their businesses. So much of the talk is about the traits of successful entrepreneurs. But the points discussed and the advice that she gives, and that Ed Mylett adds himself, are relevant to anyone looking to reach their highest potential, whether it's professional or personal. So they start out talking about the traits of a failing entrepreneur. So according to Hormozi, arrogance would be the number one trait. So unsuccessful entrepreneurs are aware of their strengths, but not of their weaknesses. Looking back on numerous one-to-one sessions that she had done with entrepreneurs that she was working with, she looked back and she found that the ones who failed rated themselves higher than she would have rated them. And the ones that were successful tended to rate themselves lower than she would have rated them. Number two, they lack the ability to manage themselves, their physical health, their marriages, their personal life, their team. They come in late, they don't mind their time. So because they are inconsistent, the business is inconsistent. They're controlled by feelings, not by their values. So I found that to be a very great point, because one of the things I learned by being involved with the one thing goal setting process, and I'll put all the links into the webpage that this is on, is the first step is to define your core values, so that you ensure that everything that you're doing is in line with what your core values are. And this comes up a few times during that podcast. So she says, to succeed, you must be strong-minded with strong beliefs loosely held, and the ability to adapt, take feedback, examine data, and change tactics. So I find that to be true in business and also in achieving your personal goals. So if you have your strong beliefs in what you want for your life, and then you come across something that's showing you that perhaps that's not the best track, being able to pivot or be flexible, reassess the situation, and then redetermine your plan. Then they discuss when entrepreneurs get complacent too early. According to Mylett, in a startup phase, entrepreneurs play scared They work their tail off, they learn, they grow, and they have a ton of humility. But too many want to get over that phase too soon. So it's the learning phase, it's the startup phase, right? A lot of people realize that you're not going to see real success for quite a while, right? Because you're just getting started, you're testing the waters, you're learning what's going to work. The more unsuccessful entrepreneurs spend money prematurely. They take time off too often. They believe the press clippings too soon. He respects Hormozi and her husband Alex because they always ask questions and they always seem eager to learn from others and always to build on their knowledge and their skill set. He said, "The older I get, the more I realize how little I know and how capable I am of still making bad decisions. Because sometimes you make decisions based on limited information, like the information that you have at the time, or something just goes wrong, like circumstances may change. So again, you need to be able to pivot, and you need to be able to see that it is possible to make a mistake. Like everybody make mistakes, and the successful ones learn from them and then proceed on. You learn to ask more questions, get more information, and consider other options." Hormozi says she doesn't want to invest in anyone that hasn't been slapped in the face. They have learned that they can make decisions based on the right things and still have things go wrong. Other leaders think they're just lucky or invincible when they haven't had that happen. You can't play God in your business and get drunk on that, she says. Some only let people tell them the good things and how great they are and punish them for saying anything else. Leila respecting herself with the choices she makes. She says, "I want to know at the end of the day or the end of my life that I'm doing things daily that show respect for myself and the choices I make." So again, that's going back to what your core values are. And when you're making decisions, you're making sure that it's in line with your core values so that you then can respect yourself in that. So when something does go wrong, you still know that you've done the right thing, or you held the same values or stuck with the mission. So like a business will have core values as much as the individuals in that business. And it's important, if you have a business, to communicate that with the people that you're working with. So she says a lot of people blame others. They leave a business because this person is toxic. Now, sometimes there is abusive situations, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about when people don't take accountability for what has gone wrong. They may have made a wrong decision that wasn't in line with what they wanted, and should take accountability for that, because otherwise you're not going to grow from that situation. She asks herself, when I am in this situation or around this person, do I respect myself more or less? So examples she gave is like being out at a bar with a bunch of women and some are hitting on married men. Like that's not something she'd condone, so she would not put herself in that situation. In a business situation, she makes sure that the employees that she hires embody the company's values. So if she had hired people that did not show that, did not appreciate or have the same goals, because they're like a quite, they have very high goals for themselves. They work very, very hard. Some people would find that a toxic work environment, while other people would thrive in that. So it doesn't mean that one or other is wrong. They're just not aligned. So this is important when you're hiring, when you're choosing business partners, even like suppliers, other people that you're working with. And on a personal standpoint, this is very important with the people you spend your time with, businesses that you hire to do work for you, being aligned. Sometimes it's more important than others. But in order to reach your highest goals, these things have to be more in line with what your core values are so that you can stand by the decisions that you make. in her marriage, her husband supports her and promotes her to enable her to succeed. So she makes sure at all levels of her relationships that it's in line with her values and with what her mission in life is, whether it's personal or professional. She says at the end of the day, it's about your values and your expectations. So as I said before, she only hires people that see it as, I quote, "I will become a champion if I work here," rather than those who would see it as a toxic environment. Now, I've worked in a variety of different situations. So when I was working at the financial printers, it was a very high pressure situation, not for everyone. And I was responsible for hiring at times. And I knew I'd made mistakes sometimes when I hired someone that had never worked in that type of atmosphere before. Like some people had to work third shift. So I learned in time that if someone had never worked third shift, it was not a good idea to hire them because they wouldn't know what it was like. It is very hard. So you need to find people that thrive in that kind of atmosphere. And when we had the accountancy practice in Ireland, I tried to make sure that we had like our mission statement, our policies, everything reflected like what our goals were, what we were aiming to achieve, the mission, the vision, that everybody knew that. And because it was kind of a new idea, and also we were a small accountancy firm, so some people probably thought I was crazy applying these big corporate kind of ideas on a small accountancy firm. But I thought that it was really important. And then I always had my eye on, where we wanted to be with this. So, and also like when you're doing assessments of people, it's important that they understand, what your expectations are. So unless you have all of these things written, available to people, and also on a regular basis are reminding people of this, whether it's through signage, whether it's through newsletters or meetings or things like that you have. Leila says, if I can't show up for this work, for this podcast, for whatever it is she's going to do, working with a trainer, going to the gym, if she can't show up fully, if she doesn't respect herself. Then they talk about conquering your fears. So Hormozi says, fear is always present when I'm doing something worth doing. Fear is just the unknown, and we tend to catastrophize it. So she was telling how she did have panic attacks in the past. And it would be when she was judging herself and when she wanted to run away from whatever it was that she was afraid of. But then she learned that it was showing her how small her life could be. So if you're faced with a challenge and you're afraid and you back off, you're never going to reach your highest potential. Like you need to look at that fear and push yourself to do it anyway. She says, if I try to run from it, it is controlling me. So when she saw this happening, she said she read like every original psychology book she could get her hands on, and she realized she was running in the wrong direction. So she said, I needed to run towards it. Every time I feel scared, I just lean in and immerse myself in it. She says, we are going to be friends with fear today. So that's like, I guess, a mantra that she has for herself when she's starting to feel fear. She said people don't think that there's fear present in her life. They see her and her husband. Now they're very public people. They're very successful people. She comes over very confidently. And people just think that she doesn't have fear in her life. But she says, I have fear, but I also have the courage, which is to act despite fear. She's trained herself to realize that she can separate her behavior from her feelings. I can be terrified but still act. So like having fear before stepping up onto a stage for a speaking engagement, you feel that fear, but then I can still speak. And this is something that I've had a lot of times because I'm always pushing myself to do more things. And there are times when I thought like, am I just crazy for putting myself in this situation? Like before a speaking engagement or singing. Now I'm doing, at 60 years old, I'm doing hip hop, dance, fitness, and went to a master class where I was the oldest, least fit, least experienced instructor, but I went out there with all the like top people in our dance fitness format, because I wanted that experience and to push myself that far. So that was a whole weekend, and throughout the weekend I was kind of like, what am I doing? But I was around people with the same values as me that would support me and push me, and nothing really bad was going to happen to me. I used to do Taekwondo, and I used to love going to the competitions, and I'd sign up, and then I'd get there and think, what have I gotten myself into? Should I get out of here? Because I'm 5'2". Again, not the fittest, especially at that time. I was good at doing the patterns where you just do like a routine by yourself and they give you points based on your form, and that you remember all the moves, and that how well you sort of convey the whole vibe of it, right? But I never did as well with that, and I thought maybe it was because I wasn't as tall and slim, so it didn't look as good. But also did some sparring, and on 2 occasions ended up with black noses. No, almost a busted nose one time, because I was up against a 6-foot-tall woman from the Netherlands who just kept punching me in the nose. And that was the last competition I did. But I also did a long cycle challenge for like 60 miles along the Irish coast, and it was beautiful, and I was so proud of myself when I finished it. But, so that's an example of some of the crazy things I pushed myself to do, but it's like taught me that there's pretty much anything that I can do. So then people say to me like, Anne, I could never do the things you do. And I'm like, that's not true. You make a choice. Everyone makes their choice. And like, there may be times when there are like things that would be a physical impossibility. Like, I'm not going to go win a gold medal for Taekwondo, I don't think, right now. But there's other things that I can do, and I'm always looking for challenges. And like, when I started doing the dance fitness, I was kind of thinking maybe I will do a thing where I have people give me challenges, so that I have to push myself, and that I'm not like limiting myself by what my own beliefs are. Like, I do that sometimes in karaoke. You probably think I'm insane, that all these things that I do, but I'm just like out there living life, and I just think that everybody should do what they want to do. And karaoke is one thing that I enjoy, especially if I'm with a good group of people. And sometimes I let other people pick my songs, so that I'm not limited to what I think I'll do good at. And sometimes it comes out and is great. Sometimes it's just a lot of fun. Sometimes it sucks a little, but that's it. You're there for the fun. Would I do that on television? Maybe not. But, it's about, facing your fear, run in the right direction, run towards it, don't run away from it. Let's see. So she says the only way to rid yourself of fear is to do the exact thing that you're scared of. So like I was saying, if you're afraid of public speaking, you need to get yourself in front of people. And whether you start on a smaller scale and build up, and it's something that you would need to do regularly, so even if it's like talking to customers, giving your pitch, it's, you just need to get as much practice at doing that as possible. If it's something more physical, it takes practice to do things, and, in time, you'll build up your confidence, you'll build up your skill level, but also surrounding yourself with people that are going to support you. Mylett added, hiding from it makes it bigger, running towards it makes it shrink. And then she told of a quote, and I love this quote: fear is a mile wide and an inch deep. So do you get that? So her analogy is, if you think there's a lake in front of you, right, you're not going to swim across that lake, but you take the first step and realize it's just a puddle. right? So the fear looks so big, but when you take the first step into it, and we all have things that we once were afraid to do, but we now find that we've done it. It's in the past, and that we've done so many more things since then. You know, so it is about like taking that step. Every time something started with fear, it ended in confidence. Like, she didn't start creating content on social media. She has a very deep voice. And a lot of people were very focused on that and very critical of her, like really badly stuff online about it. And so she was thinking, I'm never going to do any social media, but she was encouraged to do it. And then when she did it, she realized that by not doing it, it degraded her self-respect for all that 3 years that she was debating whether she should do it or not. How do you become more confident? You conquer your fears. It fuels the person you want to show up as. That's what she says. How to generate real confidence? So Mylett says that when he was younger, he gained fake confidence from praise or recognition from others. So if early on in your career or project, you're getting people telling you like how amazing you are, you're so amazing. If you believe that, right, you're also going to have to believe the bad stuff that they may say later on. That's something that comes up here too. According to Hormozi, to have real confidence, you have to have humility, the ability to accurately assess your strengths and weaknesses despite outside feedback, which is dependent on a lot of factors, right? So if you give a talk and people like don't seem so enthusiastic about it, it could just be like they had a bad day, there was something distracting going on, they may have heard something like it more recently. Like, those are things out of your control. But on the other hand, if you do a talk and everybody's just like, you're so amazing, you should do a TED Talk, and, take that on board. Like, it's great to get those kind of kudos, but you also have to look at it within yourself and like, what are your goals and have you achieved what you set out to do? Now, she adds that the reason she has confidence is the things that she does when no one is watching. That then makes her respect herself more. Don't measure yourself by what people have to say, but on the real metrics of success. So when you're out working on a project or a personal goal and you're working on that, what are the actual metrics of it? So like, say you walk in, see some friends you hadn't seen for a while, and they're like, wow, you look amazing, you must have lost a lot of weight, or what'd you do to your hair, and all that stuff. And you like will know yourself that like, yeah, I've been working really hard, whether you did lose weight or not, or, those sorts of things. You need to look at that. What are the important metrics to you? Sometimes metrics are feedback that you want from people, that you do want a certain number of followers and you want to present an image, but remember, that's image. Like, what is real concrete? So if through your social media you're looking to get more business, the number of followers doesn't matter as much as the number of people that then actually follow through and become customers of yours. And I think people tend to forget that, and they might tend to post things that just make them look good but might not be engaging enough. Because you're more looking for just people are going to like, oh, that's a really cute saying, but is it like relevant to your business and relevant to what you really want to do? And like I mentioned earlier, if you believe the hype when people are saying good things to you, you also have to believe it when they say not so good things about you. She's, like I said, she's had to deal with people making assumptions about her and her deep voice before dealing with people's response to her actual content. So she asked herself, am I going to let this stop me? If not, if she's going to continue and do it, is she going to allow it to bother her? And she realized she could not continue to allow it to affect her anymore, so she focused on the people to whom her message would actually matter. So that is the most important thing. And again, it's about like, what is the end result that you are looking to achieve. So if you're looking to influence people, if you're looking to, get more customers, if you're looking to hit a goal in your personal life, those are the things that matter. Avoiding emotions does not help your mental health. That I do agree with, but there are certain things under this category when they start talking that I'm still not quite. So we'll go through it and we'll see, and I'd love to hear what other people think about this too. So she said, everybody has said there's something wrong with her except the people who are where she wants to be. And I do think that's really interesting, because I often get people that come up to me and say, like, aren't you spreading yourself a little thin? Or how can you do all the things that you do? And they tend to be people that don't have the kind of goals that I would have. Whereas when I'm talking to people that have similar goals to what I have in my business and personal lives, it's all, this is how we live. I'm not saying that we live any special, it's just, this is the way that I live. My business life and my personal life are quite intertwined. And that suits my life as it is right now. But, the people that are kind of like, you sure you really want to be doing that? That's something I used to hear a lot in Ireland. They have different sets of goals. They have different viewpoints. So you don't listen to that. You listen to the people whose opinions you respect, and again, whose values and goals are more aligned with what yours are. And it's important to surround yourself with people like that. Now, this is where we kind of divide here, where she says what feels good and what is good for her are two completely different things. She looks at self-care is often overused and is actually avoidance, where avoidance makes the problem worse and emotions bigger. Where I feel there needs to be a certain amount of real self-care. So maybe it is just sort of semantics in this case. Like, I know, like, she's a real hard worker. She thrives on business. She thrives on working with people. I completely understand that, because I'm a bit like that. A lot of my hobbies turn into businesses. But my last post for the health and wellness mailing list was about having to take time to relax and to reflect and decide whether you are on the right track or not. So this is what I think is very interesting. I get what she's saying. I get that some people do avoid the hard stuff at times and put it off to self-care. But I do think you do need a certain amount of time, downtime, physical refreshing time too, mental refreshing time too. So she's saying they feel good in the short-term moments, but long-term it creates dysfunction in their lives. So it could be that this is a sign that there is something more serious going on. So she feels that we've made avoidance okay. It's a culture of avoidance. Teaching people it's okay to feel your feelings legitimately, not to avoid them, and creates a cycle of avoidance in their life. So as far as she's concerned, she just thinks, like, how sad is it that people think that chasing after a dream so big that I have to overcome all my fears is sad. And that really is true. Like, I definitely think that nobody should be criticizing somebody else. And as many of you know, that, like, once you reach a certain level of success, people are just going to be taking shots at you. And I think now, especially because they've been doing a lot on social media, they do a lot of public trainings and online things, that people then do start to get critical and post things about them. And as she says, you have to just not let that bother you. You have to do what you feel. And this is one thing that I've come to believe, is that I need to look at like what authentically feels right for me, right? So I do feel it should feel good, right? I don't stray away like, and I think that once you learn to face your fears, that can feel good. So a lot of what she's talking about, I think we're meant to feel good. I don't think we're meant to be on edge and feeling fear all the time. And like when I was in Ireland, I was around a lot of people that were in startups, tech startups, because Ireland's the Silicon Valley of Europe. And kind of that culture of like whatever it takes and working so hard and hacking your body so you only need 2 hours of sleep. I think a lot of that's overstated. And still there's like so many of these people that are like, oh, you got to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to become a billionaire. I think that works for some people. It doesn't work for everybody, and you've got to look at what works for you. So she says, I'm on a mission every day. I wake up excited and ready to go. So that I think is amazing, and that's feeling good for her. So we'll see if she answers my question, because that's what I asked her. Don't people need time to reflect and time to physically refresh, and what does she do? So we'll see if she answers. I'd love to hear your opinion on this, because I do think it's really interesting. And I think it could be like, I hate to put it this way, a male-female divide, or maybe it's an age thing. I'm older. I might need more rest. Probably not, but it would be interesting to see. Now, the next part I love, use your obsession as a superpower. So some people are just sort of inclined to be more obsessive. And I think a lot of people, to be highly successful, it might be perceived that you need to be a bit obsessed with what you do, because you have to be very focused on it. It will take up a lot of your time. So she says, I just find obsessions that work in my favor. So like, that's a good tactic. You can do that. I am obsessed and I will reach my goal no matter what. So she's very intense. So she gives an example though of her mother. So her mother committed suicide in front of her, I believe, when she was young. So that did affect her quite a lot when she was younger. So there was drug addiction, alcohol abuse. So she said that her mother could not use her obsession for her benefit, and it caused her downfall. So they look at it that way, that if you can use your obsession and harness it to get to where you want to be, that's one way to power what you want to do and to reach your goals. So sometimes we're obsessed with something and we create rules that work in our favor to achieve our goals. So if you say like, I'm always going to do extra reps before I leave the gym, right? That could be an obsession that you do to make sure that you get that in, and it's going to help you reach your goals that much quicker. It could be that like, I'm always going to read, a finance book, for 15 minutes before I go to sleep at night. Things like that, that if you sort of obsessively undertake things that are going to move you towards your goals, right? You're making these rules that can work in your favor. But if that obsession or those rules no longer serve you and you cannot break it, then it's probably something to take care of. So again, you need to be mindful of when something is out of your control or if something's in your control. And I will add, going back to these things being aligned with what your values are and making sure they are actually aligned with what the goal is that you're trying to achieve, and not just something you're doing to drive yourself crazy. Put your mental energy into things that matter to take you towards your goals. And Mylett adds, if you compulsively drink or gamble, do you know how close you are to being mega successful? So in his opinion, right, it's those obsessive tendencies that can make you highly successful. The next topic is great leaders are like chameleons. So Hormozi says that when she was 18 to 19 years old, she was arrested 6 times for drinking and drugs. So she had that obsessive behavior. And it was going out of control. But it was when she was able to get that under control and then use it towards her success. So she says she's a hunter. I think we all know, like, I'm a connector. I connect people and I help connect people with their goals and get their actions towards their goals. Or she's a hunter, and if she doesn't have something to hunt, she gets into trouble. And Ed Mylett also says he's a hunter. When you try to suppress what you are naturally gifted at, it takes you in the wrong direction. So it isn't like something inside her fundamentally changed, but she just put it in the right direction. Mylett talks about this in parenting. So he looks at that, like, if your child has like obsessive behaviors that are seen as like bad behaviors, if you can rechannel that into something that would be deemed more constructive. So say someone's very high energy, and get them into sports. That's one example. Instead of always sort of fighting against it, is finding a way to use it. Now that may seem like very simplistic, and I'm sure there are certain issues that would be a lot more complex and not that easily solved, but I thought that was a good example. And I see a lot of people that have done that in the past. So it's kind of like work with what you've got. Like we had collie dogs, like the rough collies, like Lassie. And I had 2. And I used to go on walks with them. And so we were living in the country and we're walking on a country road that's very narrow, no shoulder, very windy. So I was always worried about cars coming along very quickly. And I was worried about my dogs. So I was trying to put my dogs on the inside. But they're herding dogs, and their instinct is to protect. So I was always fighting with them, trying to get them to the other side of me so that they weren't hanging out, that if a car were to come along, right, I would have gotten knocked, they probably all would have gotten knocked over. But luckily, that never happened. But it was just showing me that some of the instincts that you should not fight against. So like people that have pets know this, and you know that when with children also. But I think just like I'm like a student of human behavior. I'm always kind of watching people and trying to figure them out. So that's why I just found this podcast episode to be so interesting. So she discusses her ability to speak to a person. This is something I am 1,000% behind, and it's something that's behind my like how to get in front of the right people. She has the ability to speak to a person in a way that they will understand the message she is delivering. So this is something that I've learned throughout my life. I'm not sure how I picked it up, but something early on that I've learned that if you speak to people in a certain way, and it's not being inauthentic, it's still being authentic, but you need to deliver the message in the way that the person is going to understand it and take it in the best way. So whether it's with the type of language that you use, the manner that you give it in. So I found that, like I said, even early on in my career, I worked in a university, then I worked in a big printing company, and then I went to the UK. So people used to say like, oh, you picked up an accent. And I might still have, and then we went to Ireland. So, but it was using the words that they use so they would understand me, and I wouldn't have to, and using even the pronunciations that they used, so I could just order a sandwich and not get, what? Wait, what did you say? And people looking at me. So I've learned that through my travels, but it's something that I did know earlier on. If you're speaking to a young person versus an older person, someone that's had certain types of training and might know certain terms that other people wouldn't know, it's important. So this is something that I said I'm behind this. I thought it was great when she said it, that to expand your capacity as a leader, she has to expand her ability to adapt to the person in front of me. So she mentions like if she's talking to somebody that's kind of had been in the military and then worked in like a big Wall Street firm versus somebody that kind of came in from the Midwest from some small like law firm, that, you know, you might need to speak to them, I don't want to say gently, but it's just knowing the difference between like what's going to impact on someone and what's not going to impact on someone. She said her values didn't change. Like, she didn't change, but she changes the tone, the expression she uses to communicate the message. She wants to be sure that it's heard in the way that it's intended to be heard. Then they kind of talk about some more financial type things, about money is just a tool. So he was like, tell me about the cash out, like when you're exiting and how exciting it is, and that's kind of where I kind of was like, this isn't as much in line with the messaging I wanted to talk about, but I did think it was interesting, like their viewpoint towards money. So she said that all that money doesn't mean that you can just stop working, because some people were like, I'm just going to build this business, I'm going to sell it, and then I'm going to go to Tahiti. Where her ethos is, I'm going to build this business to make it the best business it can be and earn enough money to then go on to the next project. So it's just really like, it's an end. It's a means to an end, or verse that's not. It's just like a continuing cycle that, like, her passion is about building up the businesses to the most successful that they can be. Not so much as I can make, 500 million in this cash out. And I think for a lot of people, like alongside this, and I know there's philanthropists like in their bio, so they probably do a lot of really great things too. And also, if you're thinking about the other people that they're helping, because the people that are working in the business and the entrepreneurs that they're investing in are also benefiting from these things. So I think that when you're looking at your own business, and this is something I found more recently, I think like post my divorce, when it was just my business and the way that I was looking at like my own success, my personal success, I was looking at it very differently, as more the impact that I was having versus like how much money I could make. While that is important to live the lifestyle that you want to live, I'm looking at it more from the people that I can impact, the other people that I can help, whether it be through charitable work, or whether it's through helping other people with their businesses and getting their businesses started or to the next level. So you need to know yourself. And again, whether this is on a business level or on a personal level, what is your true goal for what it is that you're doing? So what she's saying is the mission should be about working towards the company's success, not just the cash out. And your life's mission shouldn't just be about the end goal. This is mine, actually. Your life's mission shouldn't just be about the end goal, but about appreciating the journey, the person you become, and the connections that you make along the way. So I'd love to hear what your opinion is on some of these topics. And I'm not sure if this is going to fit my health and wellness as much, but I kind of wanted to use it for that also, because I do feel that there are some great points in here that will help you through your personal goals as well. And in the article that accompanies this, I will try to highlight some of those things more. But also, let me know, like, if you need support, if you would like to work with me on some of these goals that you have and try to find a clearer path to get to where you want to be. I am going to be launching a new program for women in the autumn called Raising Your Voice. So that's very much in line with what they're saying about communication. So how to more successfully communicate to get to where you want to be with your goals, and whether that's career or your personal life. So I'll put a link so that you can sign up for the wait list for that. So again, take a listen to this podcast episode. Let me know what your take is. Or if you just want to respond to any of the points that I've noted here, I would really love to hear what you have to say. So until next week, take care.